I mean, I think, like you said, both are equally important. The tactile in the store sort of presence and on the streets, hopefully, but also the online sort of storytelling. And as someone who's running a small business and a nonprofit, to have digital tools at your fingertips and not have to pay a big ad agency to place a big ad, it's huge. It's the reason I think we're all here, because of that viralness and because the world is so interconnected, and you can't totally turn your back away from the famine happening in the in Kenya and Sudan, or Somalia, sorry. So I think it's easier in some senses, and it really has enabled us to be able to do what we're doing.
I think it's a really important distinction to, there's like analog and then there's digital. And you've got these digital agencies, and there's a lot of stuff happening in digital that's just sort of like happening in the abyss that I think really just like kind of like goes in one ear and goes out the other, right? But to me, the best digital is amplifying what's happening in the physical space, right? It's just an amplification. So, like for instance, when we first started, Falling Whistles, I was broke and homeless. We had $5. So we bought 5 crappy whistles. We sold those out of our pockets. We had $50. We sold more. We had $150. And we wanted to reach the whole world. We had $150. So one of my best friends, David, who now runs the company, David hitchhiked from Austin to New York City. He hitchhiked through 40 cities for 4 months. And he just sat down in living rooms and coffee shops, like just like this. And he looked people in the eyes and he was like, look, we don't have all the answers. We don't have all the solutions. But 6 million people have died in Congo. And we're not going to be quiet till it's changed. Join us. And he built the coalition from scratch, like living room by living room, coffee shop by coffee shop. Which, let's be very clear, David Lewis is an extraordinary individual, right? And that like physical action is heroic. But the fact that he the whole time was able to tweet, like en route from like small town Alabama to other small town Alabama, right? Like, and he's getting picked up by an ex-convict, and he's like tweeting about that, and he's like, I'm gonna end up at the Starbucks, and right, all these things. So then more people are coming, and more people are coming, and then like by the time he's at the 40th home, you've got 50 people instead of 5. And then he inspired 3 college students in Florida who rode their bikes from Florida to San Diego, stopping in every city saying the same thing. Why? Because they were following his Twitter feed, and they were like, it was just amplifying the heroism that already existed. And I think that's what's exciting, is it creates totally different distribution outlets that didn't exist before for us to talk about the heroism of individuals, which is happening all the time. And we typically don't get a chance to know about it.
Okay, thank you. Today, there's a report issued by Stylecaster, State of Style report, which tells us what we know already, that women are different to men, or is it the other way around? And the detail is that 40% of women spend 40% more of their disposable income on clothing than men. The gender gap is more apparent after 25 years of age, and I wonder, how does this fact affect or apply to philanthropic consumerism?
That's true. From our perspective, and we're making bags, which guys are a little more finicky about even carrying a bag. But I think, approximately 95% of our customers are women, and actually everyone who works at Feet is a woman, which isn't totally on purpose. So we're creating and thinking about women because we are women. So it's just sort of ancestral that way. But I do think, as well, especially with mothers, I would say mothers are like the most compassionate consumers out there. And we found amazing response from mothers in terms of buying our products, because we're feeding kids and they are feeding their own children, and really day to day are conscious and aware of their own children, and thus gives them the empathy to be aware and want to help other children around the world.
We've just launched this campaign around nutrition called Future Fortified, and our target, like everybody else's, is moms. And so we said, moms are purchasing more college-related products than anybody else. They're spending $80 a month on baby clothes, so why not create sort of the red campaign of baby clothes? Let's create bibs and onesies and bags and stuff. Lots of stuff, and get it out there, and that's our cultural intervention to engage moms, particularly in Middle America, around a campaign that they otherwise wouldn't have engaged, or on an issue that they have no quote unquote reason to care about.
I'll just say unequivocally women are more altruistic than men are. I think some of it just draws from the natural levels of emotional compassion that they feel towards causes. But that means it's your responsibility to get the men in your life to give more money. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it. It's like, we'll put out a campaign or an effort of some kind, and consistently, as the cause, we see a much bigger response from women. Our staff is probably 65% women, 70% women. And it's not like we've ever discriminated and said we only want men to work here or women to work here, or one versus the other to donate and support an effort. But I think you're just more likely to be altruistic. I've never seen any specific data, but from firsthand experience, it's true.
We have more men customers than women, but we also have a very masculine product. We have far more female volunteers than men, but we're about to release a more feminine product, so I'll let you know in like 3 months. Danny Joe whistles killed it. They were beautiful. They were feminine, you're right, but they were also bold. They weren't masculine, but they were very, very bold. That's right, baby. Article.
What would you say is the most rewarding part of your work? What gives you the buzz?
Just working with the most amazing people, like this people in this social change, entrepreneurship community are super genuine. They really care about what they do. They're some of the hardest working people, and it is partnering with all these kinds of groups is just the most amazing. You walk away every day and say, wow, like I had an awesome, fun day, and I tried to make a difference.
And for me, it's the really, really high level and the really, really low level wins. So 2 examples that we recently experienced. From the high level, I started just over 3 years ago with a $25 bank deposit and then a $20 birthday party. And I was just trying to leave a job in management consulting and build one school. And this whole movement of amazing people supported it. And then, I thought like, oh, maybe if we build 1 or 2 more or whatever it might be. And then we had our weekly staff meeting today at 2 p.m. and I got the numbers. And like I'm not as in touch with our numbers anymore because I'm thinking just different thoughts. And I found out that we had broken ground on 67 schools and we've opened up 55 now around the world. And so like as a high level, that's like, it's mind-blowing. I mean, I have to put my head in my hands for a second to digest it. At the same time, I work relentlessly on the culture that we're creating within our physical office space because that carries much, much further than any one individual. And I'm on the road a lot, and that sense of what Pencils of Promise was always meant to be has to be there beyond any one individual for the organization to sustain. And so I was really adamant about instituting the fact that we have to play music all day long. No questions about it. And really got on an intern at one point and was like, your job going forward is fun police. You are in charge of making sure music is on all day long. And then at one point, the whole office is working, no one's really speaking, and there's a Kanye song playing. And the chorus starts to come on. And little by little, my whole staff is rapping to Kanye together. And it was such a small, little, meaningless thing. But later that night, I thought about it, and I was like, that was one of the most meaningful wins that I've experienced in 3+ years with the organization, because it meant that like this broader vision for a culture and a movement and an energy that you personally believe in, but you're always kind of told like, it's not really going to happen. It's the little kind of granular wins that are become so meaningful, as well as the really high level ones. That's what motivates me.
Okay, so let's follow on from that. Each of you, can you just say when was it and what was it that you made you realize you had made an impact on the world?
I can talk about making an impact on a single individual. I don't know about the world per se, but when I was, after I graduated school, like everybody else, super confused. What the hell are you going to do with your life? Experimented with some work in the policy world, realized that wasn't for me, and met this eye doctor who had this great idea to train low-income women to start their own businesses, selling eyeglasses to communities in need. And I thought that was a really powerful idea. And so if you have you're going back to gender roles, you're creating jobs for women, and every study has shown that when women have access to capital, they tend to use it on the health and education of their children, and you're providing people with the tools to see, to learn, and to work. And I just remember being in El Salvador and being in a rural village and going through a training to teach a group of 15 women to give a simple eye exam, and then sort of bringing in some other people, some of their neighbors, to go through that eye exam, and then seeing people put on a pair of glasses for the first time and seeing that grin sort of ear to ear was just pretty impactful. And then you turn and you look and you see these 15 women that now have jobs dedicated to helping people in their community, and it's pretty fucking amazing.
I'm trying originally I was just getting lost, I think sometimes that's the best way to get found. And just backpacking, and we ended up in this military encampment in Congo where kids were being tortured for war crimes, crimes they'd been forced to commit. And like, what do, right? I mean, I freaked out. And we spent the whole day there, you're swapping stories and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And at the end of the day, we ended up exposing the encampment to UN. Kids got pulled out. It was this kind of incredibly insane moment. And I went home that night and just like bawling through tears and screaming at the moon and drinking a whole lot of that wine we're going to drink in 20 minutes or so. Wrote this sort of stupid little blog called Falling Whistles. Sent it out to about 80 friends and family, and they forwarded it around the world. And I woke up the next day to hundreds, and then the next day to thousands of emails saying, what do we do? How do we help? Why is this happening? What's going on? And it was sort of like, like, I have no idea. I mean, we just got here. Like, I know nothing. So I'm gonna just answer with two, because one, that
Hold on. I'm jumping in here.
Go ahead.
You guys sit and listen to this. You tell that story as much as you can, because this is a story that I heard and cried, and this is the definition of what socially responsible businesses mean. This is one of the most epic stories you'll ever hear. So rant, rave, do your thing.
Thanks, man. I mean, I don't know if I have it in me right now. Here's what I know, guys. Look, a month ago my father died, and like the people on the stage were so there for me, like in rad ways. Lauren wrote me this amazing card and sent me this beautiful bracelet, and Braun was like by my side, like text messages. We went skiing together and was like my boy during some of these really challenging moments. Like, suffering is real, and it doesn't matter if they're black or they're white or they're rich or they're poor. Suffering is real, and when you can do something to alleviate it or solve it, you do it. And that's not me, and it's not the people on the stage. It's all of us. Like, we have that in us. We want to so bad, and we don't always know how. So that day, I got to get 5 kids out of a military encampment. And there was a very real feeling of like, whatever it takes to make sure that this never happens again. Like, we're just going to do this. We're going to make sure that, like, anything that we can do to make sure that kids aren't suffering in war, we're going to do. We're just going to, and we're just all in. I got an email a month ago from this amazing organization called Heal Africa, and we were able to fund all their children's surgeries last year. And it's like, 330 names of kids on this email, and the PDF just went on and on and on. And I've been expelled from Congo for 2 years now, and so I haven't been able to go and see the work that we've been funding, that we've been working so hard to fund. And it's like all these names, and there are guys like Jeff Shows is in the room right here. When we were working out of a garage, we were working on. I was making about $200 a month. Dave was making $200 a month, and we were sending $3,000 a month to this rehabilitation center in Congo. Jeff was our neighbor, and he was this weird person with this orange hat that he always wore, and he was just always coming by and bothering us, and we were like, we're busy, we're trying to end a war, and he would just be asking us questions like, well, how are you, and we were like, we're busy, and he would just always come over and over and over again, and we were working together for 3 years now. He's a brilliant human being who, like, you're talking about countless midnights where, like, I'm leaving the office and Jeff Shows is still there busting ass so that we can get that email with 330 names. And so, look, I don't know. I mean, I'm not answering the question I just know that like you have been amazing. The people in this room have been amazing in supporting this, but we're just getting started. And I think we're all just getting started. There's a lot of work to do. There are a lot of problems to solve. Let's solve them together.
All right, guys, we're gonna start the Q&A, or what I've called bonus time. But when we started Stylecaster, Brandon Perlman, my best friend and business partner, we were joking around about this idea of style to the people. I didn't know what that meant until I met these guys. If you want to know what Stylecaster appreciates and respects and looks up to, it's the people on this stage, because these are real change makers. These are the people that are my role models. And I encourage you, ask them questions, because if you don't take anything else away from this conference, please just take what these guys are doing and somehow, some way instill it into your everyday life, because these are a few select people that I know that their life has meaning every single day. And if every one of our lives has meaning every single day, we'll all be better people for it. So with that, please fire away questions. These guys have a wealth of knowledge.
First of all, very good kudos to everyone on the stage, because everybody wants to do what you guys do, but not everybody has the courage to do that. So very big kudos for finding the courage, dropping everything you had before, and just doing that. And giving us the opportunity to support you. More real question, business question. I'm curious, how does the competition work in what you do? For example, I know there's a Uganda-based organization that does apparel and accessories that supports local women and kids and family and the whole community in the end. And they partnered with another organization there in Uganda that does sandals. And they do it together, they support each other. So when it's more of a similar category though, how do you guys deal with that? Are you still partners? Do you exchange ideas? Or is it like fierce, competition?
It's an amazing question, because one of the things that I've learned about these guys, as an entrepreneur, the most hardcore entrepreneurs are the ones that aren't doing it for money. So I think it's a brilliant question.
For us, we love to partner. So we work with amazing sort of on-the-group artisan groups, and we always call them out in our hang tag. I sort of see that, competition, and maybe this is not the most cutthroat business perspective I should perhaps have. I think we're sort of doing our own thing, and as long as you kind of have that, keep with your mission and stay true and authentic to your brand, I'm all for partnering with existing fashion companies to small artisan groups to everyone. I think I would love for everyone to participate with and in Feed. So that's sort of my perspective.
And I think it's also, how do you set your company up? And Adam talked about the culture. But are you inherently a company that is by itself, or do you build into the DNA of what you're doing that we want to partner and work with everybody and anybody and make our message as ubiquitous as possible? And yeah, it is a very, very crowded marketplace, but sort of all ships do rise in this area.
Yeah, I mean, I've played on kind of both ends of the spectrum. So I used to be a consultant at Bain, and so I was advising like Fortune 100 companies, and something in their instances, competition is very real, and company X can't just share their secret sauce with their competitor in the space. But my assumption is everyone in this room isn't in that position. And just like Simon was saying, I really agree, all ships rise. I mean, have I not had a conversation with every one of you guys about doing a collaboration at some point in time? And the thing that I look at, and again, we're in somewhat of a different space, but I still think it's relevant, is I don't look at anybody as competition, I look at them as motivation. And so the people that are doing what we do really well, they just motivate me so hard to be better. Yesterday at Build On, it started 20 years ago, has built 440 schools, and they have youth programs in low-income communities. They do exactly what I hope to do one day. And I sat for probably 2.5 hours with their CEO yesterday. And by the end of it, we were hugging and just saying, like, how can I help you, and vice versa. So again, it's a different space, but I think that there are a lot of parallels to be drawn, and especially like when you're starting out or when you're even earlier stage, like the thing that has to drive you most is ambition, not competition. And when you see others that are doing well or in your space, like just treat that as either a learning opportunity or as an opportunity for collaboration.
Mr. Brandon Perlman.
Hey guys. So one couple of facts that I really wanted to hear. Simon, you said people want to wear clothes on their sleeves. Tangibility is a key component to this. I've heard it 700 times. I believe in this now. So bringing those two things together, and Neil, Sean, Lauren, the fashion component on top of that as the vessel by which this is communicated, and then visual media on top of that. What is better about tangibility rather than just entering your credit card information in, sending money to a cause? How is the tangible component, and why is the tangible component so important now, whereas in the past you'd write that check to the Red Cross, you put money in the collection plate, etc. I get it, but I don't know why I get it. So I think that's something that I really want you guys to tell us.
Sure. Well, I guess from first perspective, one thing that we'll never maintain is that buying a pair of glasses for $95 would be better than just donating $95 to Vision Spring, like our primary nonprofit partner. So that is a far more efficient way to affect change. But if you need a pair of glasses, or prefer that you buy it from us, that's going to have a positive impact. And hopefully when you talk about your glasses, there'll be an advocacy tool and you'll raise awareness about it. One recent statistic I saw was that 65% of people in the U.S. have purchased a cause-related product in the last 12 months, which is pretty astounding. And 64% of people are actually very skeptical in the motivations for companies selling cause-related products, which makes a lot of sense because often even the term cause-related products makes you seem cause-related marketing, right? You're just trying to sell more. We don't consider ourselves a cause-related marketing company. We think of ourselves trying to solve two problems. One is sort of to radically transform the optical industry here in the U.S. and then also create a model for how for-profits should behave. If we can demonstrate that you can be a highly profitable company at scale doing good, then we can encourage more and more entrepreneurs to enter the space. Again, the reason why we give a pair to someone in need for every pair that we sell is because it was about having that impact. It wasn't about giving a percent of profits or a percent of revenue, because that can be easily manipulated. It was about having that impact of somebody being able to see again. And frankly, at the end of the day, I don't know what the right amount of money means. All the things that I know is that if a person's able to see, I know that their income is going to increase by 20%, which is dramatic when you think about international development impact.
I think, yeah, I would agree. And I do think people more and more are craving that tangible impact and result that their purchase is having. Because there's so many amazing products out there that do give a percentage of profits or proceeds. And that's completely important and very valid. But at the end, you don't quite know what that money is going towards. And I would say, I feel not lucky, but we're dealing with hunger. A meal costs X amount. It's very tangible, where when you're dealing with peace or AIDS or some other social issues, it's more difficult to have that very tangible result. And in talking to charities do need sort of unrestricted funds as well. And for that reason, we started the Feed Foundation. So if you don't want to buy a bag, if you already bought a bag, there's a way to give that's equally, if not more important. But for the everyday person who just wants to go about their life and feel like they've done something, you buy this bag, it feeds one child in school for a year. So each of the products we sell has a very clear number on it and a very large hang tag that explains exactly what that purchase has done. So I think more and more, especially young people, really do need that tangible aspect.
So for us, what we do with the money is far less clear, right? We fund a variety of different Congolese visionaries doing a number of different things: technology, infrastructure, rehabilitation, medical stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on that we're funding, advocacy. So the purchase, I think, is far less about what the money's going to with us and far more about what that symbol means in your life. We're in New York City. It's like we're in this place where people are having conversations all day long. You can't go anywhere without running into people. And a lot of the time we're talking about nonsense because that's what we do, right? We just talk about things. But one of the things that's impossible to do when you're wearing the whistle is talk about nonsense, because everywhere you go, people are going to ask you about the whistle. And so all of a sudden, you're given this opportunity to elevate common conversation. right? And what we ask you to do is to be a whistleblower for peace, like speak up for peace. And I think that typically people who wear it are wearing it to say to the world, like, this is what I care about, this is what I represent, and this is what I'm actually really interested in having a dialogue with you about something that matters, that's substantive. And that to me is very different than like we're going to feed one child, and also very much the same, right? There's some interesting corollaries there for sure.
No, exactly. And one reason I designed Feed to be this giant burlap bag with a giant feed across it was because it's a billboard, and people are going to ask you about it, and hopefully, you've read that lengthy hang tag enough to know a bit about Feed. So it's very important, the funds we're raising, but even more so, I would say, is the sort of conversation starter element of carrying a feed bag around.
All right, guys, let's do one more question. Obviously, I think we could do this panel all day long, and thank God there are conferences to do that, but I'm just honored that these guys took time out of their day to join ours, because it's about enhancing the conversation and, again, getting away from so much. Unfortunately, I think with so much what New York Fashion Week has become, we need to get more of this into the conversation. So I'm honored to have these guys here. Is there one here? Saw a hand. Okay, go ahead.
I think fashion and charity both share that there's so many options, and you can choose to donate to water or food. And in the fashion world, they talk so much about brand loyalty. Do you guys find that cause loyalty is something that you try and develop, and you do develop, or does someone donate once and move on to the next cause because they've bought a bag and now they're going to build a well?
For those of you guys that didn't hear, the question is about developing cause loyalty, similar to how the fashion industry develops brand loyalty.
Well, there's a huge shift that's actually occurred with our generation, where we're much more cause agnostic than previous. So one statistic that a philanthropic advisor out of Switzerland told me was, in Europe, the average person, when they give for 17 consecutive years. And so, yeah, it's pretty incredible. And so the entire ambition of an organization that was courting, traditional European donors was just to secure a few donors, and you're good for a long time. I think it's almost been a fault of ours, is that we've almost tried to say, like, we want everyone to be a part of this, we want to create this broader movement, and because of that, you don't have the depth of engagement. And I think also, like, we're bombarded with so many messages in a modern digital environment, and we're also being asked by others, because everybody, like, it's not right now, again, back to the competition question, I never worry about, like, taking money away from somebody else or somebody else taking money from us. I just think about how do we get greater share of wallet from overall individual spend. Like, how do we get people in general to give more money year on year and year to the collective dollars that are going towards charitable causes? And I think that as emerging generations, people are donating their graduation, their birthday, etc. And so you're constantly being hit with these messages that aren't coming from the brands anymore. They're coming from people that you have very real relationships with, and that's where there's actual loyalty. Like, my friend who runs a marathon, every year that she runs a marathon, I'm going to give. And I don't really distinguish whether it's for leukemia research or whether it's for AIDS research. I'm just going to give. And so I think that that's actually the kind of emerging trend, is there's loyalty to individuals, and then for a selective few, where maybe you go into the field, like anyone that's come with me on the ground to Laos or Guatemala or Nicaragua, their pencils of promise for life. I'm sure of it. They've all said it. But that doesn't mean that they probably don't have 3 to 5 other causes that they really, really believe in. So that's just my general observation on what's kind of happening in the space.
There's real quick. Sorry,
bring us home.
No,
it's only.
King said, "The saving of our world will come not through the complacent adjustment of a conforming majority, but through the creative maladjustment of a non-conforming minority." And so I think for us with Peace in Congo, what we've always felt like is, I'd much rather 5 people who would die for it than 5 million people who forget about it tomorrow. And so I'm very interested in building cause loyalty, for sure. People who are like by our side. But I think to Adam's point, that's entirely about relationships, right? It's not like some ethereal, I care about the brand, right? No. Like, we build into the organization. People are on the phone every day with middle schoolers, right? High schoolers, whatever it is, our community of people saying, like, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, and keeping those relationships going, because I know for us, like, what we're doing is not going to be solved in a year. And it's probably not going to be solved in 2 or 3, right? It's going to take a long time, and so we're going to need that, like, non-conforming minority, right? That deep loyalty of people who are with us for the long haul to solve this.
Guys, a huge round of applause. Thank you guys for that. I really do appreciate it. Again, the whole definition of style to the people, I think, could be embodied in the 6 who are up here on the stage. So it was an honor to have you guys. I really do appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to ask these guys to stay and drink with us, as I ask all of you to stay and drink with us. But we're going to close the show with one of the rock stars of the fashion industry, who I'm sure all of you guys know is definitely a distinct honor and pleasure. In a second, you can read your program. I think DJ Susie Q is going to play a track or two. We're going to set the stage, and then we're going to bring this thing home, then we're going to party, and then we'll see where the night takes us. I think Brendan probably made a reservation, Mr. Childs, for all of us, so we should be fine.